Check, check.
Yep.
Oh, welcome to our first live Q&A. I'm going to be sitting with Danielle Petrina, our project manager. If you are live with us today, you can write your questions in the chat. Feel free to ask any nutrition-related questions that you feel free to want me to answer. And if you don't have anything for us, we're going to kind of do just some communicating. Danielle and I are going to just have a conversation. She's going to have some questions for me, and we're going to get started here in a minute.
Okay. All right, Andrew, I think today we were planning on talking about sweeteners.
Yes.
The natural sweeteners. We know that's a big topic for our patients, especially concerning a couple things like, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Stevia.
Yes.
What are the other ones that are
Like
out there?
artificial sweeteners versus sugar alcohols versus natural sweeteners.
Yeah.
I get this question a lot, especially in the oncology population, because if you were to Google sugar and cancer, you may find that sugar feeds cancer, or you may have heard that from a friend or a family member, and it is more or less a myth. And, you know, we need carbohydrates or sugar, so we use that as energy. But there's a difference between simple sugars and complex carbohydrates. So we talk a lot about this, and we actually have an entire playlist of healthy dessert options. So we've made a few different things.
Some good, some bad.
That's
We're
true.
willing to
Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error.
My favorite, I think, was the silken tofu chocolate mousse.
It was good. Mine was the chickpea
Cookie
brownies
dough.
or cookie dough.
Oh, yeah.
There might have been two.
I think we made a couple.
Yeah.
But go to that playlist if you're interested in learning a little bit more about healthy desserts or alternatives to just some simple sweets. So let's talk a little bit about those alternative or artificial sweeteners. So they are FDA approved, right? So there's a few of them that are like aspartame,
That's FDA
stevia.
approved?
Yeah, they're all FDA approved. And what is good about them is it doesn't elevate your blood sugar. So for our diabetic population, it is a good thing to have something that, you know, is 0 calories, is 0 grams of sugar, that does not elevate your blood sugar or contribute to hyperglycemia or elevated blood sugar. So those are positives. Now, I don't think that artificial sweeteners have been around enough to know what they can do long term.
Right.
Now,
I always thought aspartame was like bad, right? It's
well,
like
it does get a bad rap, and I think because some people just don't tolerate them, for one thing. Like, did you ever hear somebody that was like, I can't have a Diet Coke because it upsets my stomach? Or
no, actually never.
Okay.
But okay.
Well, I think artificial sweeteners, don't sit well with certain people, or they can cause some GI upset. Same thing with sugar alcohols. If you have too much of sugar alcohol, it could cause diarrhea.
So what is, like, when you're looking at a food label, right? There's the total sugar, there's the added sugar, then there's the sugar alcohol. Can you talk like through those three?
Yep. So total carbohydrates is the bulk of all of that. So everything underneath total carbohydrate is going to be indented. So those numbers should be included in that total carbohydrate number. Now, added sugars, you want to keep less than 5 grams per serving. That's kind of just a rule of thumb. Sugar alcohols, if you look in the ingredient list, the last few letters of the ingredient is going to be tall, like xylitol, erythritol.
And we want to stay away from those.
So not necessarily stay away from, but just be mindful of them because
Okay.
they can contribute to diarrhea. They can cause some GI upset. And unfortunately, the Cleveland Clinic just put out some research that erythritol is linked to heart disease and stroke. And it's found in a lot of things.
I literally just bought like a new protein, blah, 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 and shared this information with me. And what's on there in that ingredient?
Yeah.
Erythritol. I was
Right.
like, okay, well, I'm going to eat it. And then I'm never buying it again. So,
Well, and it's funny because we talk about monk fruit as a natural sweetener that you can find on the shelves, and it's found in the sweetener, like where sugar is and all of those other things. There's granulated forms, there's powdered forms. Monk fruit is a fruit. It's a natural sweetener. However, a lot of companies are adding erythritol to it to increase the sweetness.
makes me so bad.
It's funny because I would encourage monk fruit or like stevia because it's natural. However, I had a patient actually reach out to me and they were like, Angela, I just saw this article from the Cleveland Clinic and my monk fruit contains erythritol. What do I do?
So, but monk fruit in its natural state does not have that.
Correct.
So why are they putting it in?
To increase the sweetness, which isn't really necessary because it's already sweet on its own, and it enhances the sweetness so much that then you only need to use smaller amounts.
This just makes me feel like
It's overwhelming.
Just go with sugar.
Right. So the thing is, sugar in itself, too much of it, of course, can lead to diabetes, obesity, other, chronic diseases. So you want to keep things small,
Right.
portion control with everything. However, things like honey, maple syrup,
Right, those are
agave nectar,
natural, right.
they're natural. They still cause elevated blood sugar because
Okay.
it is sugar,
Right.
right? But it has more nutritional benefit.
Right.
There's vitamins and minerals in it.
Okay.
It's more nutrient dense. So if anything, and you'll see in our healthy desserts that those are present in a
Right.
lot of those desserts.
Yeah, actually, like we've never put stevia
No.
in any of the desserts
No.
that we've used. It's always been a natural sweetener.
Right.
So if somebody is like, I'm not actually doing any of these artificial sweeteners because, like you said, the research isn't out there for long-term effect.
Right.
So what would you look at as like your daily intake of sugar? What should that look like?
So that can definitely vary. However, if you are a diabetic, you may have been taught to carb count or count your carbohydrates per meal. So typically, one serving of carbohydrate is 15 grams.
Okay.
So that, for example, is an 8-ounce glass of milk. That's one slice of bread. So, for example, if you're having a sandwich, 2 slices of bread, that's 30 grams of carbohydrates right there. Now, usually, patients can have anywhere from 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per meal.
Okay.
So a lot of times when people get diabetes, they think they should restrict all carbohydrates, when in reality, they need a consistent amount of carbohydrates to keep their blood sugars stable.
Right, because you'll have a drop then.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll have this.
Yep.
When in reality, we want this stable.
Okay, but if I'm not diabetic and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like trying to I think a lot of our cancer patients definitely feel triggered by sugar and
sure.
like what it can do, and there's a lot out there and what's real, what's not.
Yep.
Let's talk about that.
So choose complex carbs like whole grains, brown rice, fruits, vegetables, beans, and lentils. You want your carbohydrates to come from something that also includes fiber, but also protein. In order to get, a good balanced meal, you need every macronutrient. So carbohydrates, fat, and protein. And if you get a balanced meal, it helps to make your blood sugar rise, but slowly. So then it kind of just sits here. Instead of having these quick highs and,
Big
quick
lows,
lows,
yeah.
you're having more of like a steady.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what you want.
Here's one to dance with evident today.
All my,
I know.
I can't stop with the hands.
I know. Two Italians.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Okay, good. So definitely check out what our healthy desserts option playlist is. There's a lot. We are actually throwing up one next week. It's a healthy pudding that
yeah.
we put
Yep.
that we're going to be putting up. And we did this already, so it's these classes are recorded. This is our only live Q&A. Is every month at the last Wednesday, but that texture was pretty awesome
Spot
with
on.
the pudding. I mean, so spot on, and we think that you could probably, with the cocoa and with the maple syrup that's in there, you can always adjust these things to like your level of sweetness if you need a little bit more. If you're a dark chocolate lover, that recipe is for you. For sure, because you're used to a little bit of bitterness already with dark chocolate, so definitely check that out. And one thing I want to just talk about, real life. So like real life, it's great that people are going to eat fruits, vegetables, and their complex carbohydrates, but like every now and then you crave an actual sweet.
Yeah.
So like I'm craving ice cream. What can I do with that? I think that there's a lot out there about ice creams, like do gelato, do the low sugar.
Yeah.
So like what is just something that like I actually don't have time to sit down and make a chickpea, blah, blah, blah.
That's fair.
Well, let's just talk about normal life.
Right. So I always tell my patients, keep sweets as a treat. Right. It should be something you look forward to. It should not be a staple. So, for example, if your family's going out to get warm apple dumplings from Brewster's, because that's what I need and want, have it, right? Look forward to it. Keep it as a treat. It's something you enjoy and you look forward to. Don't put so much fear and negativity around your food choices. But like I said, those things shouldn't be a staple. You shouldn't be going to get a warm apple dumpling every night after dinner.
Sure,
right?
Of course, yeah.
But if you are that person that needs something sweet after a meal, keep it small, portion control, and maybe choose dark chocolate or maybe a frozen yogurt or a fruit sorbet or something that's a little bit more nutrient dense. And keeping your portion small, because even as a diabetic, you can have sweets, but you have to be mindful of how much you're consuming.
I think it's just so important to read the label,
Yeah,
right? So the label, you're going to see what is nutrient dense. You're going to see that serving size, because like, a lot of times like you look at that calorie count, but maybe it's like a fourth of a cup and you're like, ugh, that's kind of
who's
like
really
small.
measuring anything?
Right.
So, I mean, that's something to consider too, is actually maybe measure out a quarter cup and see what that looks like.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder that you can catch new material content on our YouTube page every Wednesday at 9 a.m. We shoot out new cooking, what is our program called? Cooking for Cancer and Chronic Disease. Lots of C's involved. And then again, every Wednesday, the last Wednesday of every month, I should say, we will be doing these live Q&As. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah,
we had
bring
a
your
little bit of a
questions.
technical difficulty today, of course. Again, we produce these shows on our own. What was your major in college?
Nutrition.
Yeah, mine was not
media.
production. Yeah.
No.
So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you in the kitchen. Take care.